Taking a steadying breath, she glanced at her husband, silently pleading with him to stay strong. "Just a few minutes," she mouthed, trying to convey a calmness she didn't quite feel. The judge's words of praise about their parenting filled the room, sparking a glimmer of hope. They had to win this. Their son needed to stay. But just as they started to believe they'd made their case, an unexpected blow came. The boy spoke, his words unraveling everything. This wasn't part of the plan. Anxiety tightened in her stomach. She had prepared for every question, addressed every concern, yet the judgmental gaze of two women at the back of the courtroom unsettled her. Their self-righteous disdain felt like a force that could shatter everything. Kelly and Jordan Baker had longed to share their fortune with a child, wanting to create a family despite struggles of their own. 2 years of seemingly friendly interactions with their neighbors hadn't hinted at the turmoil to come. At first, Kelly and Jordan's path seemed straightforward, but a visit to a specialist, hoping for answers to their fertility challenges, brought news that turned their lives upside down. Jordan was unable to father a child, and further tests confirmed that Kelly faced physical barriers of her own. The diagnosis left them devastated, and though the doctor tried to offer adoption as a hopeful solution, it felt like a hollow comfort at the time. Yet, as they grieved, a spark ignited a new hope. A visit to a foster home in Jacksonville changed everything. Meeting the children there, they felt a calling toward fostering. Their hearts opened to the idea, and soon they embarked on a journey to provide a safe, nurturing space for children in need. For Kelly and Jordan, fostering was a new beginning. But unbeknownst to them, a storm was brewing next door. Their well-meaning, happy home wasn't enough to pacify their neighbor, Julia, who worked from home and seemed to scrutinize every interaction. She wasn't convinced by the Bakers' efforts, and her critical gaze foreshadowed troubles that would soon erupt, jeopardizing the life they were striving to build. One unsettling incident shattered Julia and Travis's sense of peace. At first, they had only intended to have a calm conversation with Kelly about their concerns. They never anticipated ending up in a courtroom battle. Their worry had deepened when their son Austin befriended one of the Bakers' foster children, a polite and diligent 13-year-old named Tisan. Austin casually mentioned that the Bakers planned to adopt his son, and Julia felt her concern intensify after a particularly unsettling experience. Tisan, who encouraged Austin in school, had charmed both Julia and Travis, who admired his manners and quietly wondered who had instilled such values in him. Kelly had initially seemed so warm and funny, and Jordan, with his military background and steady corporate job, only added to the picture-perfect facade. But Julia and Travis suspected a hidden darkness beneath their friendly exteriors, a truth they felt compelled to bring to light. Now, after 2 grueling months of hearings, the tension was palpable as Julia and Travis sat opposite the Bakers. The judge was about to decide Tisan's fate. Their opposition was fierce, born from a gnawing unease that only they seemed to notice. But as they looked at the Bakers, Julia couldn't help but wonder if her concerns would be taken seriously against a couple who seemed so loving and genuine. "Do we even have concrete proof?" Julia whispered to Travis, the weight of her responsibility pressing down on her. The disturbing incident that haunted her lacked the irrefutable evidence she so desperately needed. Tisan, once a beacon of hope and joy, now seemed trapped between the potential for a brighter future and the dark shadow she feared surrounded the Bakers. Julia's initial hope for a simple conversation had evolved into a battle for truth, even if the truth was shadowed in uncertainty. As she braced herself for the judge's verdict, she understood that this would not be a clean or simple ending. Regardless of the outcome, the scars from this fight would remain. As the Bakers, his posture betraying a flicker of fear. With a deep breath, she walked toward the stand, her voice steady and determined. "Your Honor," she began, her tone laced with conviction, "with all due respect, I implore you to deny this adoption. Kelly and Jordan are unfit to be parents. They pose a danger to Dasan and, frankly, to any child in their care. Her voice rang clear, each word promising that she would not back down. I wouldn't allow this to happen to my own son, she added, locking eyes with her husband, Travis, whose silent support anchored her. The idea of this court handing over a good boy like Dasan to them is beyond comprehension. Julia had always been known for her directness, unafraid to confront the truth head-on. Her concerns had initially felt vague, a nagging unease. But one evening changed everything. Standing at their bedroom window one Friday night, Julia and Travis had witnessed a scene unfolding at the Baker's home that shattered any lingering doubt. Through that window, the facade of the Baker family crumbled. What had once been a quiet suspicion became a horrifying reality. Dasan was not safe. Julia felt a surge of protectiveness as she took a quick glance toward Dasan. He sat rigidly, a stoic expression masking the turmoil within. But she could see the weight he carried, the pain he hid so skillfully. Kelly and Jordan's threats hung over him like a dark cloud, a constant reminder of the consequences if he dared speak out. The manipulation was subtle but powerful, and it was clear that Dasan had been caught in their web for too long. Julia's heart ached for him, the strength of his silence telling its own story. How much longer could he endure this before breaking? Across the courtroom, Kelly's face remained impassive, a mask of indifference that only fueled Julia's determination. Jordan's gaze shifted between the judge and Julia, his expression unreadable. Yet to Julia, it was clear that his calm exterior hid something far darker. They had cultivated an image of success, warmth, and respectability, but Julia knew now that it was only a veneer. As a mother, Julia continued, her voice growing firmer, I cannot stand by and let this happen. Dasan deserves better. He deserves safety, stability, and the chance to grow up free from fear. My husband and I have done everything in our power to raise our concerns, and now we are relying on this court to do what is right. A tense silence filled the room as her words lingered. She could feel the weight of the courtroom's collective gaze, each set of eyes assessing her plea. Julia knew the stakes, and though her heart pounded, she refused to look away. This was a fight worth every ounce of her strength. As the gavel seemed poised to fall, a tremor ran through Dasan, and he knew he couldn't stay silent. Voice shaking, he stood, his eyes darting between the judge and the Bakers. Your Honor, he blurted out, his words slicing through the courtroom's tense silence. I need to speak. Dasan was a small figure in the vast room, fear hanging around him like a shadow. He took a deep, shuddering breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Tears glistened in his eyes, and the judge's previously composed gaze softened with concern. In halting but determined words, Dasan began to unravel the painful truth, the neglect, the chilling threats, and the torment that had held him captive under the Baker's roof. His voice wavered, thick with emotion, as he shared the reality he had endured, shattering the pristine image Kelly and Jordan had crafted. The courtroom sat in stunned silence, the horrific details peeling away the Baker's carefully constructed facade and revealing a far darker truth. Dasan's confession hung in the air, raw and haunting, as each word painted a picture of the hidden horrors he had lived through. The Bakers sat, faces pale and expressionless, their veneer of warmth and respectability shattered by Dasan's brave testimony. The judge, visibly affected, leaned forward, his resolve softened by Dasan's courage. Thank you for speaking up, Dasan, he said gently before turning to address the courtroom. This adoption is immediately halted, and a full investigation is ordered. Dasan's shoulders sagged in relief as the tension that had held him prisoner for so long began to dissolve. He was immediately placed in protective foster care, away from the threats that had once loomed so large. At last, he was free from the Baker's control. In the weeks that followed, a flurry of activity ensued. Social workers, Therapists and investigators descended on the case, unraveling the full scope of what had happened in the baker's home. Desan's story was corroborated by interviews with past foster children and anyone who had even the slightest connection to the bakers. Each new testimony added weight to Desan's account, revealing patterns of manipulation, neglect, and emotional abuse that had long been hidden. Desan's bravery became the catalyst for a deeper probe into foster care practices in the community. His courage inspired others to speak out, their voices joining his in an effort to bring justice and protect other vulnerable children. The baker's image, once seemingly untouchable, lay in ruins as the reality of their actions came to light. As Desan began the slow journey of healing, surrounded by supportive caregivers and compassionate therapists, he found a renewed sense of hope. With each passing day, the trauma loosened its grip, replaced by the understanding that he was no longer alone, that he had been heard, and that his bravery had not been in vain. A horrifying story of abuse and manipulation unfolded, exposing the baker's dark web of control. Justice, though long overdue, finally arrived. Kelly and Jordan were arrested, facing a litany of charges that shattered their carefully built image. Their once admired facade crumbled under the weight of Desan's courage, his truth shining a harsh light on their cruelty. The court ultimately found them guilty, sentencing each to long prison terms. There would be no redemption or happy ending for the bakers, only the inevitable, bitter consequences of their actions. Desan's voice had broken their reign, and justice had reclaimed a space they had desecrated. Desan's ordeal, too, finally ended. He was placed with a compassionate and supportive family, one eager to help him rebuild. For the first time in years, he found a sense of peace, his days now filled with laughter, new friendships, and the simple joys of a normal life. Freed from fear, he began to thrive in school, rediscovering a world that no longer held him captive in silence and pain. As the months passed, Desan's story became a beacon of hope and resilience, a testament to his strength and determination. His journey touched countless hearts, resonating as a reminder of the endurance of the human spirit. For Julia and Travis, the experience had marked them indelibly, transforming them into advocates for children like Desan. Their courage had not only saved a life but had also revealed the cracks in a system that was meant to protect. The judge, visibly shaken by the deception he had nearly allowed, made a firm commitment to change. Vowing to overhaul the vetting process for foster parents, he aimed to protect children from ever enduring such trauma again. Desan's story became a powerful catalyst for reform, sparking new policies that prioritized child safety and well-being above all. His courage had ignited conversations nationwide about vigilance, advocacy, and the grave responsibilities carried by those who care for society's most vulnerable. For Desan, a road to healing stretched ahead, illuminated by hope and newfound freedom. In the care of a loving family, he was finally surrounded by warmth and stability. Julia and Travis's steadfast compassion remained with him, supporting his journey forward. He began to embrace life's simple joys once more: laughter, friendships, and the safety of a stable home. Each small triumph, a smile, a new friend, a successful school project, reminded him that his darkest days were behind him and that a brighter future lay within reach. Gradually, the memories of the bakers receded, their shadows replaced by feelings of security and optimism. The once overwhelming fears gave way to trust, and Desan began to realize he was finally free to dream and explore a future unburdened by trauma. For the first time in years, he could envision a life where he was not just surviving, but thriving. His story evolved from one of despair into a tale of resilience and triumph. His bravery in speaking up had been the turning point, casting a light on the hidden, harmful dynamics in his life and breaking the power the bakers held over him. Julia and Travis's resolve to protect Desan had proven pivotal, not only for him but also for a system that needed to confront its failures. Their actions underscored the importance of vigilance and care, highlighting the transformative power of a single act of courage. The broader impact of Dasan's story was profound, with lasting changes implemented within the foster care system. The judge's promise to tighten regulations became a reality, ensuring that prospective foster parents were thoroughly vetted and that children's voices were heard and respected. Dasan's case served as a reminder to everyone involved, from social workers to judges, that protecting children required constant commitment and scrutiny. His experience was a call to action, a reminder that the well-being of every child must be at the heart of the system. Together, Dasan, Julia, Travis, and the reform system turned pain into purpose. Their collective journey demonstrated that even the darkest situations hold the potential for change and healing. Dasan's triumph, built on courage and unwavering support, became a beacon of hope, underscoring the truth that in the end, justice and compassion can indeed prevail.